Happy Monday. Come on in.
It was meant to kill me, sent to destroy me.
Hey.
And I thought that it would, and I thought that it should. Cause I messed up so many times. I went left when you said right. I'll understand if you wanna let me go, let me go, let me go. But you held on to me, and you wouldn't let me go, and you wouldn't let me go. But you held on to me, and you wouldn't let me go, and you wouldn't let me go. And what the enemy meant for evil, God has worked it out for my good.
I don't know why it take y'all so long to come on in.
What the enemy meant for evil, God has worked it out for my good. What the enemy meant for evil, God has worked it out for my good. It was meant to kill me,
Hey.
sent to destroy me. And I thought that it would, and I thought that it should.
Hey.
Cause I messed up so many times.
Come on in, y'all.
I went left when you said right. I'll understand if you wanna let me go.
Hey. Hey, thank you. Thank you for not letting me go. Hey, lady. I got your message. I'm gonna fill out my form. And you wouldn't let me.
Now raise your voice and say, what the enemy meant for evil, God has worked it out for my good.
All right, we're going to declare that today. What the enemy meant for evil, God has worked it out for my good. In some cases, he's working it out, but in most cases, he's already worked it out. It's just a matter of us walking it out. Ooh, somebody ought to type that in. He's already worked it out. It's just a matter of us walking it out. So welcome to the chat. Tonight it's going to be short. You know, I said it every week. I need to quit lying because I said it every week, and every week we be here 30 whole minutes. So just go and buckle in. Today is going to be a good day. It's going to be light. Today I'm going to come from the Bible. The last 2 weeks I've come from my real life, and I try to give you a good mix of the Bible. That's my book of choice. It's my book of life, and it's the book that I choose to use to guide my life. And I focus more on the principles in the book as opposed to the tradition or the religion in the book. But today, as you can see, the title is Get Out of the Box. Get out of the box. Yes, Captain. Thank you for typing that for somebody to see it. Get out of the box. Now, I know you probably are thinking, what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about a little bit of what I said last night. I went live. I went to Andre Johnson's birthday party. It was, invite only. And one of my frat knows that I love, I love to hang out and I'm a fun person. And so he invited me and I took one of my friends and we had a really good time. I mean, ran into some cool people. Gary Owens is one of my favorite comedians. A lot of people don't know that. But I love me some Gary Owens. I don't know why I love his comedy. I love everything. Ali Sadiq is another one. Love him. I'm a D.L. Hughley fan. I'm more of kind of like that Dave Chappelle, Paul Mooney. I like dark satire, especially people who use their platform to talk about some of these issues. And so got to meet Gary Owen. He lives here now. Got to see Tim Thug, Slim, 713 days. Slim gonna be all out in Houston. It was just a lot of people. That was a great time. And I want you to know that I don't know why people feel the need to text me and to come into my inbox as if I have any damns to give. I've been living authentically as me for years. And I don't know why people feel like their commentary is needed, warranted, or solicited in my life. And so I wanted to tell a few people last night, listen, do you live your life? You won't be able to convince me that in this Bible, I'm using my digital Bible, that God intended for our lives to be boring, that God intended for our lives to be lackluster, that God intended for our life to be without desire, without the fulfillment of our desires. Why would he then say, I will give you the desires of your heart? The part that we don't like is as long as it's aligned with his will. See, that's the part we don't like. But the restriction of joy has never been the premise of God. Even in the beginning, they had everything laid out in the Garden of Eden. The only thing he gave them was choice. He said, it's 50,000 trees out here. I got all these animals out here. Y'all got grain coming from the ground. You got fruit hanging from trees. You got everything you need. It's just one thing I don't want you to do. And when you do, this is what's going to happen. So don't do it, but this is what's going to happen. But he never restricts or takes anything from us. I've always struggled with that concept inside of the church. So today, I'm going to teach on get out of the box, and I'm going to come right out of the Bible. I have 6 examples, but we're not going to get to all of them, but I'm going to teach about 2 or 3, and then I'm going to give them to you. I'm going to list them for you, or hopefully somebody can type them for me, because I don't think I can post, because my Facebook page is not an actual business page. It's my personal page that has that I turned into a professional page. I just put a testing comment. Let me know if you guys can see that on Facebook. If not, hopefully somebody can type it. We're going to start with some non-conventional stories in the Bible about folks who got out of the box, meaning they went against a dumb religious rule. They went against the tyrants of their day. You know, our tyrant is Trump. Went against their tyrant of the day, went against stuff that just didn't make sense. So, no, okay, yeah, because I just saw it. It did a check and it did it on YouTube. Okay, so we'll fix that. So the first story we're going to talk about, does anybody know about the Hebrew midwives? If you don't know about the Hebrew midwives, somebody type in Exodus 1:15 through 22. Exodus 1:15 through 22. Exodus 1:15 through 22. Now, if you're not familiar, this is when the Pharaoh had ordered the killing of all of the newborn Hebrew boys, because remember, they were trying to control what? Population. And the Israelites, or the Hebrews, were growing in astronomical numbers. And so Exodus, thank you so much. And so Exodus talks about the Pharaoh who came in and ordered all of the Hebrew boys killed. And the midwives, Oprah, and I can't remember the other one, fearing God, disobeyed him and hid the babies, saving their lives. I want to talk to you about getting out of the box. So let's go through that really quickly. I'm reading out of the Amplified Version. 15 through 22. Kings of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, of whom one named Shipra and the other Puah. Shipra and Puah. When you act as midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him, but if it is a daughter, she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded, but let the male babies live. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, why have you done this thing and allowed the male children to live? And they was quick to the draw with it. The midwives answered Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous and quickly delivered. Their babies are born before the midwives comes to them. So God dealt with the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very strong. And because the midwives revered and feared God, he made them households of their own. Then Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the river, but every daughter you shall allow to live. So now, does this give more context to you in the story of Moses? We always isolate out Moses, but there was a first edict. This Pharaoh was hell-bent on what you want to say. I'm trying to say, I don't want to say destroying, but he was really wanting to control the Hebrew growth. He said they're gonna take us over, and it's gonna be more of them than it is. Don't that sound like America? Don't that sound like, anyway, let me keep it moving. And so instead of putting other things in place, instead of looking at other ways to do it, their answer was murder. We just gonna kill them. And so Pua and Shipper was like, the devil, we worship God. And our belief system is that we're not gonna kill no newborns. And we're certainly not gonna kill men, because you have to understand Hebrew was very patriarchal. The patriarch, they was not gonna kill them boys. And so they came up with a quick with it. Oh, they deliver so quick. By the time we get there, the children is already here. So I know you don't want us to commit murder. So Pharaoh said, no problem. Now I want you to throw them into the river. That's a cruel, I almost said the N word. That's some cruel stuff that you would despise a people that much, that you would plot the destruction of them. So when y'all say that genocide is not in the Bible, it's in the Bible, and it's in the beginning of the Bible. It's in Exodus. Way in the beginning, before we get to Jeremiah, Isaiah, Micah, before any of them people is born, genocide is in the Bible. And the Pharaoh wanted the midwives to not only participate in genocide, but to carry it out. And they said, we will not. They got out of the box. They found a crafty way to honor God. And because of that, the Hebrew people continued to get strong, and they were made head of their households. Women were not head of households in the Hebrew day. If you go back and look historically and look culturally, again, this is a very patriarchal system. It's not a capitalist society like we live in. It's not even a monarch like England. That's a monarch where you have a royal family. This is based on patriarchy and the man running the show. Let's look at the second example about getting out the box. The second story I want to talk about is David and the bread of the prisons. See, it's so much stuff in the Bible. We just be looking at the topical stuff, but I hope to give you some different things to go and read in the Bible tonight. David and the bread of the prisons. We're going to be in Samuel 21, and I tried to find scriptures that had short, so we ain't not reading for 2 hours. Samuel 21, 1 through 6. 1 Samuel 21. 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. I'm saying my books of the Bibles. 1 Samuel 21, 1 through 6. David and the bread of the prisons. Let's read it. Then David went to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid at meeting David and said to him, why are you alone and no man with you? David said to Ahimelech the priest, the king has charged me with a matter and has told me, let no man know anything of the mission of which I send you, and with what I have charged you, I have appointed the young man to a certain place. Now what do you have on your hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread, or whatever you may have. And the priest answered David, there is no common bread on hand, but there is hallowed bread, if the young men have kept themselves at least from women. And David told the priest, truly women have been kept from us these 3 days since I came out, and the food bags and utensils of the young men are clean. And although the bread will be used in a secular way, it will be set apart in the clean bags. So the priest gave him holy bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread, which was taken from before the Lord to put hot bread in its place the day when it was taken away. So let me say, I know y'all know, like, what is this? Remember how I'm always talking about these 634 laws that the Jews came up with? This was a few of the dumb ones. So if you listen to, especially Orthodox Jews, there are so many rules. They cannot, like, they have to wash their hands. So if you've ever been in a Jewish house, they have basins everywhere. So they have basins. You have to wash your hands when you get up in the morning, and you use white towels. The men have to wear these white shirts. They have to wear white undergarments. They have relations only on Fridays. They sleep in separate beds. I mean, it's all of these kinds of rules. And so David was asking for bread on the Sabbath, and there was a rule that there was no work on the Sabbath. I'm telling you, it was dumb. So David was fleeing from Saul. Again, they're crafty in their response. Remember when he said, I got to be quiet about the mission? He was actually fleeing from Saul. He requested consecrated bread from the priests, which only the priests were allowed to eat. But the priest gave it to David and his men, and Jesus later uses as an example to illustrate that acts of mercy can supersede strict religious rules. Get out of the box. David needed bread. He was on the run, and he didn't care nothing about no rules, about no priests. He didn't care nothing about being on no Sabbath. I am hungry. You know who I am. Feed me. And the priests fed him. Get out of the box. A famous quote is coming to my head that has nothing to do with the Bible, but I love what's love got to do with it. And when Ike goes to get Tina out of the hospital when they have their first baby, after they have their first child, you remember when he carried her, Frost went to pick her up, and she said, "Wait, Ike, I'm not." And Ike said, "Who you gonna listen to? You gonna listen to your man, or you gonna listen to your doctor? You gonna listen to your man, or you gonna listen to your doctor? I know what's best." That's kind of what it is in this instance with David and the priest and the bread. And the priest said, "Are we going to listen to these dumb rules, or are we going to listen to the God of hosts and see this man that is hungry, whom we know, and are we going to feed him?" And they chose to feed him. Get out of the box. And I promise you that out of the box is where God is. God is not in religion. He's not in religion. He's in spirituality, but he's not in religion, because the religion is a set of rules and restrictions created by man in its attempt to create a community, but it becomes way too restrictive, and oftentimes it moves God out of it. Let's go to another one that you probably have never heard of: Jesus and the disciples in the grain fields. Oh, the shortest one is Luke 6, 1 through 5. Let's do Luke 6, 1 through 5. This one is actually in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Remember, those are the four gospels, and many of the stories are told, many of the same stories are told, but from different vantage points. We're going to do Luke 6, 1 through 5. I like the way Luke sees things. He's the physician, so he sees things from a different perspective. So let's go with Luke. One Sabbath, again, here we go with the Sabbath and all these rules on Sabbath. I'm reading out of the Amplified Bible, Luke 6, 1 through 5. One Sabbath, while Jesus was passing through the fields of standing grain, it occurred that his disciples ate some of the spikes and ate of the grain, rubbing it out in their hands. But some of the Pharisees asked them, it's always some Pharisees. It's always some Pharisees and them Sadducees. Always the people that's got something to say. Why are you doing what is not permitted to be done on the Sabbath day? Now, remind you, these people are eating grain and rubbing their hands together. It's so stupid. It's like no work. I'm like, are you serious? Jesus replied to them saying, "Have you never so much as read what David did when he was hungry? He and those who were with him." Remember the story I just shared with you? How he went into the house of God and took and ate the sacred loaves of the showbread, which is not permitted for any except only the priest to eat, and also gave to those who were with him. And he said to them, "The Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." So I shared that story before I wanted to share this one, is because I wanted you to see that in the Old Testament, or when it was actually happening, David had to have the fortification. He had to have the gall to go in and ask the priest for the bread that were reserved for them. And David didn't give nothing about no Sabbath. And then Jesus comes back. Jesus comes back millennia later and upholds and says, even David ate bread on the Sabbath and broke one of y'all little traditions on the Sabbath. The Lord, the Son of Man, is the Lord over the Sabbath. And so when you get out of the box and you get away from the rules that people want to place on you, when you get away from the rules of institutions, when you get away from all of the restriction that has nothing to do with the essence of whatever the experience is, they're walking and eating grain. What does not working on the Sabbath have to do with them eating grain? Nothing. In the grand scheme of enjoying their life and enjoying their time with their master, he was probably teaching and they were walking. What the hell does the Sabbath rules have to do with that experience? Nothing. What did the Sabbath have to do with David fleeing from Saul for his life? He's hungry. The men with him are hungry. He knows the priests have bread. They're the only ones that's going to have it on the Sabbath. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? I'm hungry and on the run. I don't care nothing about no rule. Huh? Y'all like that? And then the first one, we are not going to be party to no genocide. We're not going to kill no babies. What we going to do is lie, and we're gonna be creative in our response so they don't take our life. But these babies gonna be born because we answer to God, we have a moral code, we have a value system, and we are not afraid to get out of the box. I got one more, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Jeremiah. A lot of people don't know that Jeremiah spoke against a lot of what was happening in the land. He consistently spoke against the prevailing beliefs and practices of his time. See, when we read things like false prophets, we act like it ain't never happened before. When we read things like sorcerers and false beliefs and false doctrines being taught, I don't know why we don't think that. I don't know why we think we're the first people to experience anything. Ecclesiastic says there's nothing new under the issue in, but for some strange reason, we think, especially in America, we think we the only, we the first, we the last, and my everything. I don't know why we don't think that nothing has happened before. So he would teach against these, and he would often face opposition and persecution for his prophecies. He was even thrown into a cistern to die for his unpopular message because he was what? He was willing to get out of the box, and he was willing to trust what God told him and speak it to the people, regardless of what was being taught in the pulpits. Somebody ought to hear me in here. Let me give you a very practical example. There are people who believe that therapy is a waste of time, and that everything you need is in the Bible, and that if you just read the Bible, it's just the words just gonna magically come off, and you don't have to have no Holy Spirit, you don't have to have no discernment, you don't have to have life experience. And if you struggle in those areas, you certainly can't go get help outside of religious organizations or whatever you believe. And I sit on this floor to tell you that you need both and. I'm of the belief system that you need both and. Absolutely the principles of the Bible. But here's the problem. If you can't get over the negative story that's playing in your head, how are you going to see God in the word? How will you find joy if all you experience is chaos? How will you find peace if all you experience is noise? How will you find healing if all you experience is pain? How will you find everything that's in the Bible, all of the promises? How will you find abundance? How will you find prosperity? How will you find wealth? How will you find what's in the Bible if the story that you're telling yourself is one of the unmet needs that I teach in my classes? I am unworthy. I am unlovable. I am different. If that is a story that is playing in your head, I can give you the Ethiopian Bible and you still won't find God in it. And you certainly won't find his principles, because the story that's on loop in your head is I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. I'm different. What I want is not available to me, and I'll never have what I want. If that is the story that's in your head, you won't find God. And so I have to get out of the box of religion. I have to get out of the box of those expectations of people who say one thing and then do something different. If I could, baby, let me say something. This right here, if I get out of here and have an untimely demise, y'all need to get my phone, because if anybody get in this here phone right here, kings and kingdoms shall all pass away. And I'm not lying. I have seen some of the most horrid things. I have had some of the most interesting text messages, emails, messages. People are just disrespectful. And those that are not disrespectful, they lustful. So, and these are people that are in your pulpits. These are people that get up and sing and do everything all the time. And they're the same ones that are condemn me for having a margarita, or for, doing a line dance. Where them fans at? What? That's why I don't care. I'm going to do me. I'm going to live out the box. I'm going to teach out the box, and I'm going to do everything. And I'm still going to be covered by God, and I'm still going to be backed by God, because God ain't in none of these rules that we have in our culture and our society. He don't have nothing to do with that. He said, I've given you the earth. I've given dominion of the earth over men. Now, what we have done as men is we've given that dominion to the enemy. We've given that dominion to bad decisions. We've given that dominion to governments that do not work for us. We've given that dominion to powers and principalities that we have yielded the power of God in us to these things. But God is not an Indian giver. He didn't give us the dominion and then take it over. He gave us the dominion, and then um the enemy has taken it over. Not because God gave that to the enemy, we gave it. Read your Bible. Read your Bible. We gave it. God gave us dominion. And then because of our lack of understanding, because of our lack of knowing the power, see, what happened in the garden was so much more than eating fruit. It was the beginning of our inability to make decisions that are God based. Come on, somebody in here. It was the beginning of our ability to be tricked by an idea that is not of God. Come on, somebody in here. It's the first sign of mental manipulation. So when people tell me that trauma is not in the Bible, I just look at them and I just pray for them. And I say, Lord, help them to open their eyes. That from the very first decision that Adam made, once Eve got there, once two people were there, and there was no alignment and there was no talking, and Eve went off and did whatever she wanted to do and was easily persuaded because she didn't have the same connection with God that Adam had because she hadn't spent as much time with God. And so from the beginning, hey, Yvette, from the beginning, the manipulation of the mind has been there. Eve was manipulated in her mind. In her mind. Even if the conversation happened like this, the decision to eat happened in her mind. So her mind was manipulated, and then her body followed suit. And because Adam didn't have enough experience in between this thing that he loved and a mate that he loved and a God that who had loved him, he didn't have enough experience in leadership. See, y'all don't want to hear these practical. Y'all like the woo-woo. Y'all like didn't he die? Y'all like all of the fanciful parts of Christianity, and that's fine and well. But I want you to look at the practicality of it. Since the beginning, there's always been a manipulation of the mind. And in today's context, with 3 minutes left, I want to urge you to get out of the box of the mental manipulation. I want you to get out of the box of these expectations that these people don't even follow themselves. 634 laws. Who in the hell? Let me get off my soapbox. We struggle with two. We struggle with love God and love your neighbor as yourself. We struggle with the 10 commandments. That's out the door. That's out the door. Adultery and fornication keeps us, we out. Do you hear me? Lying, stealing, out. We out. So we sure can't keep up with no 634. We sure can't do that. So get out of that box. Stop living under the law and come on over into grace, which I personally think that we're moving into a new dispensation. I think the dispensation of grace is done with, which started with the cross. And so we moved from the law, and then when Christ died on the cross, we moved into grace. And I now believe that we're moving to a dispensation of manifestation, and a dispensation of where it's like an intelligent dispensation. I can't really pick the word, but we're moving into intelligence, and we're moving into understanding God in an intellectual and a tangible way. First, we tried to understand Him through laws. Then Christ came, and there was a whole different way. Christ introduced us to love. Christ introduced us to grace. Christ introduced us to mercy. Christ introduced us to heaven, not hell, and that you can have joy and not condemnation. So grace is the complete opposite of the law. And now I believe we're moving into a new dispensation where now that we experience the love of Christ, we want to experience the intellect. We want to get to know at a very deep mental capacity. And I don't have the language for it right now because prophecy is not really my gift, but I do believe that we're moving into another dispensation, especially with everything that's happening in not just our country, but around the world. And I believe that we're going to be experiencing God in a very different way with technology on the rise. I think information and intellect is going to be a major part of the future of our lives. And so get out of the box. Some of y'all still living in the law from millennia ago, and you have yet to come into the grace dispensation, which happened at the cross. And now we're finna get ready to move into another dispensation, which is of information, intellect, and technology. And I don't want you to get left behind. So get out of the box. Go read some of those stories that I shared. Thank you so much, Catherine, for putting that in the story. Hopefully you learned something that you didn't know that was in the Bible. And hopefully I sparked something with you in you so that you can look at where you are still sheltered, where you are still conforming to some rules that don't align with who you are personally. And I don't have to sit here and beat you up. You know where you're unaligned. You know when you be sitting in the room and they be teaching and your spirit be like, nobody hear you here. We could be at the bar. We could be at Kashada. We could be down here to the Zulu festival. We could be on down where we supposed to be. But you sit there because you want to be there, because people expect you to be there, not because it's who you naturally are. So figure out who you are, figure out what makes you happy, and make sure that it aligns with who God has called you to be in your authentic self. And as always, if you need some help, give me a holler, give me a DM. I'm finishing up some things. I'm speaking at a mental conference here in Houston in a couple of weeks, and so I'm finalizing what I'm going to be offering to that audience. And it's interesting because I have tried to do this thing so many times, and I find myself getting frustrated because I have been doing this for 7 years. And I'm like, God, every time you tell me to launch, I go forth, and then don't nothing happen. And then I have to go forth again, and then I have to revamp, and then I have to go forth again. I'm tired of going forth and coming back. So we're gonna give another push. And we're gonna do something else, and try to give you guys something else and another way to connect. Part of it is society. Part of it is society. We have so many competing things um, that by the time people recognize that they need therapy, especially trauma therapy, which is a very different type of therapy than talk therapy, by the time you recognize that, you already done popped off. You didn't already lost your job, so you don't have the money to pay. You see what I'm saying? By the time you recognize, you are already so far out that it feels like it's impossible for you to get help. So we gonna thank you so much, Catherine. We gonna keep walking it out, and I'm gonna see what the Lord have for me to continue to offer y'all. Y'all say a prayer for my family. We're still in the middle of what we're in the middle of, and I believe God, and I'm getting a second win, where I was getting tired and I was starting to question, and so y'all keep my family lifted, um, that we may come out of this legal situation on the other side, and that truth will prevail. I've been through 2 therapists already, Yvette. Yeah, well, great message. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Yvette. Well, you know, I'm here. If you need me, I'm a different kind of therapist now. Y'all know I don't talk that woo woo. We're not finna sit here. I know how you feel. Because you with a therapist, so I know how you feel. And I tell my clients all the time, I don't care how you feel, I care what you think. Because the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So I don't care about your feelings. Your feelings can change every day. They can change every hour. You can go from 0 to 60 in 30 seconds. I care about the thoughts that are running the story in your mind when no one is looking. That's what I want to get at, because that is the reality that you're experiencing, not even what comes out of your mouth. What we say out of our mouth is just a declaration of what we believe. It goes hand in hand because it gives power and it gives energy and it gives movement to what you believe. But I guarantee you, if you speak something that you don't believe, what you will experience is what you believe. Bottom line, I can prove it scientifically through cell therapy. I can prove it in quantum. I can prove it in metaphysics, and I can prove it spiritually. You can say that you are a millionaire, but I guarantee you, if you do not have $1 million idea, and if you do not have that mentality, you're not. You're not. And your bank account will tell you that you're not. Huh? You can say that I'm healed, but if you don't see yourself healed, if you don't believe that you are healed, and if you don't take the steps to manifest your healing, you will live in sickness. I am a living witness. These are things that I know personally and that I can back scientifically. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, turn my little music back on. We went 5 minutes over. I love y'all so much. I'll see you guys next week. Same bat station, same bat channel. Tell somebody, share this with 5 people who need to get out of the box and stop listening to what other folks say. Get connected with God and figure out where you need to authentically be as we move into this next season of our existence. Go back and read those stories about people in the Bible who got out of the box and followed God and not follow the religion and not follow stupid rules and not follow the religious orders of the day. Hope you guys have been blessed, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
God has worked it out for my good. If you believe it, come on, say it loud. What the enemy meant for evil, I know you thought it was gonna kill you.
Good night, y'all.
He's gonna use it for his glory.
Sometimes I be feeling like it's gonna kill me.
Everybody clap your hands. Let's go.
Woo.
Yes, sir. Everybody clap like this, y'all. Like this, y'all. Listen, I need you to know that whatever you're going through, God has the ability to use it for his glory. He doesn't waste anything. If you went through it, he can use it. Let's go. Say, it's working.
It's working.
It's working.
It's working.
I need you to know that it's working.
It's working.
It was meant to kill me,
But it's working for me.
It's working.
It's working.
Tell somebody it's working.
It's working.
Encourage somebody.
It's working.
I know it
It was
seems
meant
hard,
to
but just
keep
hang in there. I promise you, it's working. And this thing that you face, every heartbreaking trial,
Woo, Jesus.
it was meant to kill me, but it's working for me. It's working.
Let me get off of here
I know
before I
it don't
start
feel
shouting.
like it.
Woo, but it's
It don't
working.
look like it.